You know, there's a saying in France, behind a good man, there's always a great woman. So, and this book was, and it's still my Bible. This is really something, it's a kind of my own heritage, my Korean heritage.
Bonjour, 최정화의 랑데부입니다. 오늘은 제가 누구를 만나는지 아세요? 오늘은 한불상공회의소 회장님이시자 건축 설계회사인 DPJ Partners를 설립한 David-Pierre Jalicon 회장님을 만나서 인터뷰를 하고자 합니다. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다.
안녕하세요.
안녕하세요. 네, 우선 본인 소개 부탁드립니다.
So I'm David-Pierre Jalicon. I'm a French architect. I'm the CEO of DPJ Partners. I serve as well as chairman of the French Korean Chamber of Commerce and Industry.
와우, 많이 바쁘실 것 같아요. 네. 그리고 한국에 언제 처음 오셨는지 너무 궁금하고요. 그 다음에 또 오시게 된 계기가 특별히 있었는지 말씀해 주실까요?
So I arrived in Korea in 1996.
Wow.
And I was supposed to stay 6 months. So I have a little bit extended the stay because I never came back to France. And I was awarded a kind of prestigious scholarship named the Villa Médicis Hors les Murs. And my research was about how to insert the high-speed train project into the Korean landscape. So I have already done some research about high-speed train project in Europe. So I look on the map where there is a TGV and in Asia, and I found Korea. I did not know Korea at all, and I decided to come in Korea. I did not know any other Asian country, so I took Korea for what it was. So I never judge, I never compare, and I just embrace the opportunity.
그 DPJ 그 파트너스 회사를 갖다 건립하셨는데요. 어떻게 한국에 설립하게 되셨는지, 그리고 또 설립할 때 혼자 하셨는지 아니면 누구랑 같이 하셨는지 설명해 주세요. 네.
So what is important is to understand that through my research for the high-speed train project, my job was more or less to register all the built heritage around the future route of the high-speed train between Seoul and Busan. So I spent 6 months in the country to look around all the nice places, to meet many people, and I have been welcomed very well everywhere by many scholars in university, by mayor of small city, but as well by farmers in the field. At that time I was very slim, and they were always worrying. They were offering me food because they thought this guy will never survive. But so nice. So I was very touched. I was very moved, and I was moved as well by what I have seen. So this is where I felt in love with Korea, and I'm still living on what I have learned through this trip. This is really something. It's a kind of my own heritage, my Korean heritage, and I think it really means a lot in my today activity. And I met my first client. My first client was a Korean client. He was name was a Oriental doctor. His name was Kwon Do-won, and I have a lot of respect for this person. And I was giving lecture at that time about how we can mix up Western and Oriental approach when we design a landscape and this kind of thing. And he was attending my lecture, and he told me that he intended to do the same thing in his clinic. So he said he wanted to build a kind of hospital, not a clinic. It was a big project. So I learned acupuncture with him. Acupuncture, I say I cannot design something related to acupuncture if I don't know. I learn all the meridian and everything. I designed one of my best projects. Wow. Really one of them. I set up a team, I organize everything, and we choose a contractor. We almost start the construction, and did happen the IMF crisis, stop the project. So it was a real heartbreak for me. And at the same time, the French School Association contacted me, and they said they were looking for an architect who can build a new French school. And the French Parliament Association gave me one condition to award me the project, is to make sure I will stay during all the process in Korea. In Korea. So it's been from that time I have to extend at least minimum 2 years more my stay in Korea, which I was really willing to. And as you know, one project brings another one, and you never leave. And
Yes.
the key point is my wife.
Uh-huh.
So my wife really probably believed more in me than myself at that time. For me, Korea was there was many barriers, the language, and plus to establish a company was not so simple at the time. But she believed it. She believed it. It was She was really a big source of encouragement to do that, and she took a big part of it.
So you owe your success
Yes.
to your wife.
You know, there's a saying in France, behind a good man, there's always a great woman. So.
와, that's true. 그렇죠? 그리고 제가 그 우리 잘리콩 대표님의 건축물을 보면은요, 항상 그 한국의 전통적인 가치라든가 믿음, 풍수지리라든가 도교라든가 유교 이러한 것이 잘 스며들어 있는데요. 그래서 정말 그 작품을 볼 때마다 제가 깊은 감명을 받는데요. 프랑스인이신데 어떻게 이렇게 동양 철학에 대해서 관심을 갖게 되셨는지 그 계기에 대해서 좀 여쭤보고 싶어요.
I attended a philosophy course in La Sorbonne, a master degree after I graduated from architecture. And at some point there was an introduction to the Oriental philosophy. And I was very much interested, especially as it is a system. Then after I went to a very small bookstore in France specialized in Asian books. And I found books about Pungsu-jiri.
Pungsu-jiri, you found them in
I
France.
found a book, and it was co-written by a French landscaper and a Korean professor. And this book was, and it's still my Bible. I have learned a lot from this book, and this is where I decided that definitely I should go in Asia to learn more about it. After, what I like in Asian architecture or Asian landscape, that you have always, it's like if you have two space. You have associated to the build form through the sign, the symbol attached on the building. When you look at a traditional temple or building, it projects you to a more large universe, like the Tao. Or to a global landscape like geomancy. So it's like you have the real space and it's associated to a virtual space. And the combination of both told you a story. If I give you a reference in a Western country, we speak a lot about Notre Dame this day and the rebuild, etc. In parallel, you cannot imagine the Gothic architecture without the stained glass.
Yes.
Because the stained glass creates a certain lighting, a certain atmosphere in the church, which is mixed up with the built form, and it tells you a story, the holy story.
Of course.
And this is what makes this space so special. And I found a little bit the same connection when you look at the landscape or when you look at the building in Korea. You can always associate to something more large, which tell you a story.
이런 전통적인 가치를 어떻게 우리가 적용할 수 있는지 좀 구체적인 예를 들어서 설명하시면 좋을 것 같아요.
Okay. So I will give you an example that I have designed. I have designed a bridge nearby the Seoul Art Center.
Yes.
The Aqua Art Bridge, which is a round bridge with a fountain in the
I've
middle.
been there for the opening.
It was some time ago. And actually, the concept of this project is coming from the Pungsu-jiri. And why? Because when I met the mayor at the time, Mr. Choi who was the mayor of Sochongu, he explained me that the Wumyong mountain, on which the bridge is attached, is a very important mountain in terms of Pungsu-jiri. So after I have studied, I did my research, and I found that the Wumyong mountain is a mountain connected Kwanaksan and Namsan.
우면산, 관악산, 남산.
And this is a fire energy, fire coming from the south. And Namsan is a phoenix mountain, which brings the fire element to Seoul. And people say that's why Gangnam is so dynamic, because this line of fire is passing through Gangnam.
Wow.
So, and I was lucky enough to find that my bridge location was more or less where the energy is going out from the Wumyong through Gangnam to express it. So that's why I designed the structure of the bridge like a ring, which is very unusual for a bridge, because I wanted to mark the exit of this energy. But I have remembered as well that on Seoul, the site is a little bit unbalanced because the fire is too strong.
Fire is too strong.
Too strong. And you can see because Kwanaksan is a very strong mountain, Namsam is very strong mountain. So that's why I decided in my ring in the middle to install a kind of waterfall to cool down this energy to make sure it will not harm Seoul symbolically. After having said that, the ring structure is very useful as well for me because I cannot have deep foundation because I have the water network and the gas network underground. So I cannot have big piles. So I use the ring structure as a transfer beam to connect the cable which are handling the pedestrian road of the bridge and to anchor them in the mountain. So it's like a transfer. So this, I don't need a big foundation. So as you can see, there's an interconnection between the function and between the symbols. Sometimes some French people ask me a question because it raises them a question. Why is this wrong? Why?
It's
and
very
then
rare,
I'm very happy to give the story. That's very important. And this story connects them to Korea history. That's very important. And this is the way you can pass the tradition to the next generation. If you integrate to a modern element, it can be passed through the generation.
그리고 제가 우리 그 잘리콘 회장님의 그 작품들을 볼 때마다 어디서 그런 영감을 얻는지 참 궁금하거든요.
So by many things. I think the first quality of an architect is to be curious. I think architecture is a little bit a mirror of the society. You don't build today like you were building in the Middle Age. It's very different. For example, now in a building, you integrate much more digital equipment that in the past. So an architect should always know what's going on in the society, and he should identify what I say, all the material and the unmaterial component of a building. So we connect all those elements. Some are very practical because we have to connect the building to the surrounding. So, but as well, the surrounding is not only physical; it's as well intellectual.
Yes.
And then we find a concept which connects all this kind of thing and could be the common answer to all these elements which are interconnected together. So I'm used to call me like an interface engineer.
Interface engineer,
In architecture, there's many dimensions.
Yes.
You have a structure, for example. You have a aesthetic. You have as well the function you have to live in, so etc. So a good concept can answer all these aspects. If it's only a structural answer, then it's not architecture.
그래서 정말 많은 작품들을 지금까지 만들고 계셔왔고 또 앞으로도 만드실 건데요. 가장 대표적인 작품 어떤 건지 조금 소개 좀 해주실까요?
So as I told you, it's very diversified, but I think we are very well known in Korea because I designed Sono Felice for Daemyeon Group.
Daemyeon Group.
Daemyeon Group, and we did a lot of projects for them under the brand Sono Felice. We designed as well many bridges, like the one in Seoul Art Center, but we did as well one in front of the Marriott Hotel, and
Dragon City also.
And Dragon City. So Dragon this is the entire project. Was very nice. The Sky Kingdom at the top of the hotel, which is very popular now. I see that in many dramas they are shooting
and
this.
You also did a lot of things about the luxury
industry. Luxury. In Cheongdam-dong, I have almost 10 projects in Cheongdam-dong.
Wow, 10 projects in Cheongdam-dong.
I did as well a very famous foreign embassy. I did the Oman embassy.
Oman. Whenever I
which
go
is very, very special design.
But did you go to Oman
I went
build
to Oman. So you see, it's very diversified and it's a good balance, but and I hope it will continue like that.
한국의 건축물에 대해서 우리 잘리콘 회장님이 가장 좋아하는 한국의 건축물은 어떤 건지요?
So I come back in my early stay in Seoul. The first time I visit Cheongmyo. Cheongmyo, which is the royal shrine.
Yes.
Really impressed me a lot. And some people find it a little bit curious because compared to Gyeongboku, it's more simple. But
Very
that's why.
Simple,
It's simple, and what impressed me is the stone plaza. Because in many countries, people will try to make a stone plaza very equal, very nice, with piece cut exactly at the same dimension, very orthogonal, etc. And here, no, there's something natural. All the stone are a little bit different. And the architect at that time did not try to make it even and did not try to cut it very square. He has kept this kind of natural, and there's a kind of vibration. And this vibration, I don't know, but it touched me.
네, 또 잘리콘 회장님한테 여쭤보고 싶은 거는요. 정말 외국인들한테 추천하고 싶은 게 종묘였다면 회장님이 생각하는 가장 아름다운 한국의 건축물은 뭔지 좀 궁금하거든요.
What I like is the connection between the architecture itself with the landscape and the people activities. Because nothing is a coincidence. If you go a little bit countryside and you look at the traditional architecture, this building is here for a certain reason. He has this kind of orientation. It's because the Pungsu is here because it's connected to the mountain. And then he's dedicated to a certain practice. And there's a kind of harmony between all these three elements, which is very rare. And where I found it very visible is when I traveled to Gyeongju. On the Namsan mountain. And on Namsan mountain is a kind of pilgrimage, let's say. You have many stupa pagoda. And I have seen some people praying next to the stupa pagoda, etc. And they knew exactly what to do in this place. And this place looks very well located in the surrounding landscape here. And the other place I found it, and we have been there recently, is Aoe village. Aoe village. Aoe village is something really unique that I recommend people to visit. First, this is the best place in terms of Pungsu in Korea. This is where the energy is the strongest. And even though you don't know those kind of philosophy, you can feel it. Because it's a very dynamic site with the river making a looping, with a surrounding by a cliff. And then you have the village on the beach looking at the river loop and the cliff. And there's a kind of dynamism between all these elements, like if they are embroiled together, and that's really a very rare harmony between all the elements.
그 부인이 같은 분야 이렇게 건축에 대해서 일을 하시는데 처음에 어떻게 만났는지 좀 소개해 주실래요?
I have to make sure I give you the right answer because if she's watching, she will check. So I make quite simple way. I was at the beginning. I was sub-renting some space in another architect office, and the owner of this firm taught me a lot, and we were quite friendly, even though there was a big age difference. And one day he said, "I will invite you for lunch with my dentist." And the dentist has a sister, younger, and she's architect too. So maybe you can speak to it. Okay, why not? So we had this lunch, and we had good time at this lunch. And one day I have to do a big interview with a Korean architectural magazine named Contemporary Architecture, and I asked her to do the translation. And the question of the journalists were quite deep, a little bit intimate at some point, and she told me she was very touched by my answer. She has really discovered me that day. She didn't know I could be so thoughtful and sensitive, and she really liked it. But she told me this is the time she fell in love, and me it was probably a little bit early. And I was looking for the opportunity, and after that we have started to date. So it's a good memory.
그리고요, 제가 가끔 우리 잘리콘 회장님하고 식사할 때마다 항상 그 야채를 별로 안 좋아하시는 것 같은데 보면 항상 건강하시고, 제가 그 부인한테 물어봐도 뭐 콜레스테롤도 없고 정말 건강하다고 그러는데 어떻게 그렇게 육식을 많이 하시고 그러는 편인데 어떻게 이렇게 건강한지, 건강한 비결을 우리 시청자들하고 같이 좀 공유하면 어떨까요?
So maybe it's a good balance. My wife is a very good cook, I have to say.
Yeah, she is amazing.
She can cook anything. And probably the balance between the French food and the Korean food, because I think in my days I eat sometimes both or sometimes one of them, but it's a balance.
올해 계획 중인 어떤 야심찬 프로젝트가 있으면 우리 시청자들한테 좀 공개해 주실 수 있을까요?
We always have a nice project, and for example, this year we have just started the construction of the headquarters of a Korean group named Carbon. So they are producing a carbon plate, and the building should looks like a big waving fabric. So it reflects a little bit the process of producing those carbon plates, which start with a fabric, with a fiber, and it's a very unique shaped building, and it's located in Magok.
Magok.
Near the Botanic Garden,
Yes.
which happened to be a very nice place, and so I'm really expecting. And plus, the chairwoman of the group is know very well the Pungsu, and we have worked together to make sure the Pungsu of the building will be very good. Even though the building looks very modern, very sophisticated in his facade.
가장 좋아하는 한국어 표현이 뭔지요?
Yeah, you will be surprised.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit shame because they are very casual. Very casual. It's not sophisticated, etc. But I like 미치겠다.
미치겠다.
Yeah, because I like it for the sound.
When do you say 미치겠다?
When I'm out of frustration, it came very naturally. Especially when I play tennis sometimes. I feel shame I play with a group of Korean. So they. At the beginning, and I don't know why, because everybody speaks Korean, and some now naturally the Korean word is coming.
미치겠다.
미치겠다. I think it's very nice. The sound for French looks very nice.
오늘은 잘리콩 회장님과 함께 건축에 대해서 정말 재미있는 얘기를 많이 들었는데요. 풍수지리설에 대해서 그렇게 많은 식견이 있으신 줄 오늘 처음 알았습니다. 저도 오늘 인터뷰하면서 많이 배웠습니다. 오늘 바쁘신데도 이 자리 함께 해주셔서요. 회장님 정말 감사드리고요. 우리 또 곧 조만간 봐서 재미있는 얘기 나누도록 해요. 네. 그럼 우리 마무리 다 같이 해볼까요? 네. 곧 다시 만나서 재미있는 얘기 나눠요. 곧 다시 봐요. 아비안또.
À bientôt.